What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you. Welcome to my channel, Alchemist. Justin here, and bringing another little nugget to add to the Soul Tribe archive. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Mars in Scorpio in the fourth house, and this is an interesting one, I think, for Mars to be in. Now, when you talk about that Marshall planet, that red dot, now Mars is one of the challenging planets. Mars is known as the lesser malefic, and so you want to first off is to establish to understand how Mars is going to be how Mars may be translating in a day chart. Mars is going to be the most challenging planet, so that's something to keep in mind. Whereas a night chart, Mars is still going to bring some challenges, but it's more easily to work constructively with Mars. But some of the significant of Mars, some of the more challenging aspects can deal with like themes of like anger, aggression, arrogance, lies, inflammation. It's a very hot, cutting, dry energy when we're thinking about Mars. It can deal with imprisonment. It can be exile or banishment. It can lead to the estrangement from parents. It can be the theft, robbery. It's a real kind of tough bag when we're working with Mars. But when we're thinking about Mars in a constructive light, Mars is energizing. Mars gets us to take action and to go for the things that we want. Mars can make great commanders and leaders. There's a bravery aspect, in the courage of challenges and adversities to be able to stand up and tackle those things and face those problems head on. So Mars is a necessary component, when we're working with the charts, but it's just learning how Mars translates, in each individual chart. But when we talk about Scorpio, one of the reasons that this is a dope place for Mars is that this is the sign that Mars traditionally rules, or one of the signs. And so this is where Mars finds itself in its domicile in Scorpio. And when you think about a celestial body in its domicile, that just means that it has all of the resources that it needs to do what it does well, So it likes being at home in Scorpio. And Scorpio is the fixed water sign, and the receptive or yin in nature. And when I think about Scorpio, Scorpio thinking being a receptive sign, they can feel to a degree. I think that there's a sharpness, that's different than the other water signs and how Scorpio can feel. Think about how the Scorpion, they can sense the vibrations in the grounds, the things that are coming. So there's a strong intuition there. I think that the Scorpio is one that when it learns to channel those feelings, especially like feelings of inspiration and the happiness and things, or even be able to turn feelings of like anger, depression and things, to be able to transmute those energy. Mars gives that push to be able just to be able to change it into something different. There's a strength with Scorpio when you think about them. And I think that, yes, it can be some intense emotions, but I think that that doesn't just mean with the harsh things, that there could be an intense love with Scorpio. It can be just a real deep, strong focus, I think with Scorpio as well. So just some things to talk about just when we're covering that. And then when we get to the fourth house, this is was known as the subterranean place, and this is going to be one of the angular houses. And some of the themes so it's going to be a prominent house, or some of the themes that are going to stand out prominently. And some of the themes that the fourth house covers are going to deal with like your parents, your home, family, your private life, things along those lines. So when you're working with this placement, there are a couple of things to consider. One, you would have a Leo rising by whole sign, and you have to look too far to see who rules this house, because Mars does. And Mars is going to import the themes of the ninth house into this house. And so it's going to deal with like travel, especially to like foreign places, foreign people, education, spirituality, religion, politics, beliefs, things along those lines. So, just thinking about some of the challenges, let's get those out of the way when we're talking with Mars. There may be some, maybe challenges around the home space. And again, you want to compare versus a day versus a night chart. That's going to depend on the severity. But Mars is already a little bit mitigated here, being in its home sign, so that's helpful. But that doesn't take away that maybe there are some strong feelings around the home space, around the parents, if there has been any kind of challenges. Maybe there has been some sort of lying that been going around. Maybe Mars can represent like adultery. Again, it could even be like the estrangement from parents. So maybe there was a separation from parents. Maybe that well, however that might look. Maybe there was a, like I was saying, like exile. Maybe there was a guy who got kicked out from home or whatever that is. There may be something that goes on with this, with the parents. There's some strong things, and I would be mindful about, especially with Scorpio, carrying those feelings with you, because I think that Scorpio can hold things, like all the fixed signs can hold things for a long time, and that's just going to translate into your private life, into your world, and in the relationships that you form later on in life. So understanding your beliefs around, parents and the home space and things. And if that's something that has been challenging, finding ways to process that, that would be something that I would look into. Look for someone who's maybe educated around this. That could be, like a therapist who's educated around, the experiences of, maybe there's traumas around the home. Mars can be violence or aggression and things. So however that may be, maybe translating to that. And then I'm talking about like extreme things here. That would be like Mars having some kind of harsh aspects, but Mars being angular is more prominent. So pay attention to those themes around the home space. Maybe there was something with the parents forcing beliefs onto you. That could be something where they had like a strong, whether it be, or it could be spiritual, religious, or maybe even like political, sort of like standpoints. And that was something that gets cultivated in the home space. So that would be something that, yeah, that'd be another area that I would just kind of explore as well, to see if Mars presented any kind of challenges as well there. There might even be challenges around the home space, maybe just like finding a home, maybe, and again, in extreme cases, maybe there was an exile from your home place and maybe you had to move. Maybe there was something with it, this could be something as far as like a natural disaster, or maybe there was something with, again, maybe acts of war and things like that that just had to displace, or just something tumultuous that has happened and it just required you to move to a foreign land, or foreign for you, and just having to, the challenges could be just adapting to that, trying to figure out those environment, learning different cultures and things, that would be. And I think one way to kind of help mitigate that, or to kind of help to broaden one's view, especially if that's something where, if you come from a space where it was like the very limited beliefs, expanding your world, traveling to different places, maybe going to live in different home spaces, that could be a really constructive way of broadening your worldview. Going to travel, that could be things. Maybe I could see even to Mars doing something in like real estate, working with either, having maybe houses like abroad or something along those lines, maybe renting out things like something along those lines. I could see this too, where maybe there was like homeschooling, that was something that involved there. Maybe like education was something that, on a more challenging end, maybe something that education was something that was forced. Maybe you were trying to, let's say you wanted to become like a landscaper or photographer, and parents were like, no, you're going to go to school for this, you're going to do these things, you're going to follow our rules, and that's it. So that might have been a challenge. But hopefully, on the flip side of that, maybe there was a push for education, but one that was a way that was more so kind of like world expanding, in a sense. I could see this as someone too, maybe you happen to have parents who happen maybe deal with like the military, for example. So maybe their home wasn't something that was grounded all the time. It was something that maybe kind of moved around a little bit. Maybe we just kind of moved from here to here to here. Just something I feel like that gives me a feeling of being separated from your original home space, in a sense, or wherever you may have come from there. But that could be another way that I could see this kind of coming up as. I even was getting thoughts of this, like, going to school for maybe like learning like architecture and things like that, however that looks for building homes and things. I think that would be a really neat placement. Maybe even like tutoring people from home, like now with us, the power of the internet and things, maybe you happen to do kind of virtual teachings, to maybe teaching languages to other people, for example. That may be something that comes into the mix there. But I would say too, even kind of making sure that the home space is just kind of locked down, as far as like taking care of the home with Mars. And I think that having a regular kind of spiritual practice, whether that be prayer, whether it be meditation, with, maybe, whatever that's looking like, having that, cultivating that in your kind of your private space. Because I think that there is that, let your space be a sanctuary, so that you can, one that promotes that keeps the energies going, one that promotes that connection with that kind of that higher energy, that however you connect with that. So that would be another thing that I would think about with Mars in the fourth here. And I would even kind of pay attention to as you become, if that's something that you want to entertain, as becoming a parent, be making sure to, getting, maybe exposing your family to different cultures and things like that. That might be something that comes up there later down the line. But those would be just some kind of base things that I would talk about with some kind that I kind of cover with someone with this placement. You definitely need the whole chart to get a better picture of to get a full picture of how this may be showing up for you. But if you have this placement or know someone who's working with this placement, down in the comment section, let us know how this is showing up for you. Especially if you have Mars. And that's another thing I wanted to mention. Pay particular attention to if Mars is on one of the angles, whether it's going to be conjunct the IC or if it is squared the ascendant, because then again that's going to make martial themes more prominent in your world. And so if you ever wonder why that seems so loud, and if that's something that happens there, and that's day or night chart. I've seen where I've actually know someone with a night chart, but not in Scorpio, but someone with a Mars and a night chart, and it's very closely squared their ascendant, and there was some harsh things that happened around the home space. But so that's just something to pay attention to. But also, that's something where if you want to learn more about this placement, how to work with, whether it's getting into your natal chart, or if you want to maybe, do some elections, whether it be purchasing a home or planning a trip or anything, so, scheduling a marriage, down in the description box is a link to book a consultation with me. So definitely check that out. And if you have any questions as far as the services that I provide or anything, my email's down there. So feel free to reach out to me for any sort of questions along those lines. Then there is a couple of links. One of them is going to be for the Celestial News. Well, now that I did the last one, it'll be Celestial News Monthly going forward. And that just talks about the sun and the other classical planets, where they're transiting, what signs are going to be most affected, and how to most practically work with those energies. And then the other one's going to be the lunar shenanigans, which talks about the position of the moon, and like the astrology of the moon, what sign it's in, what phase it's in, when it happens to go void of course, and just to get a feel for the energies of the week and how to navigate this as the moon is making aspects and communicating with the other celestial bodies and distributing that energy to us. So some cool things to focus on or to check out there too. But until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep raising that vibration through the roof. And I will catch you on the next one. Later.